the phrase between having a culture of success or a successful culture. And I think the way of looking at those is really different. To me, just to have a team that you can lose with and feel good about is the best thing in the world. There's a joy in the wins, there's a joy in the loss, there's just a joy in the team. And again, we want to compete well. If every year, if we can just be as good as we can be, that's all we can do.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by the head women's basketball coach at Lubbock Christian University, Steve Gomez. Coach Gomez is entering his 21st season at the helm of the Lady Chaps. He starts this season with a 476-132 record, which includes a 22-2 record in NCAA postseason play. In his first 10 seasons, LCU was an NAIA institution. The Lady Chaps made 10 consecutive trips to the NAIA Division I Women's Basketball National Championship Tournament. In 2015, Coach Gomez led his team to a 35-0 record and captured their first NCAA Division II national title. He claimed the WBCA NCAA Division II National Coach of the Year. The Lady Chaps returned to the Elite Eight tournament for the third year in a 4-year span in the 2018-19 season. LCU made an outstanding run towards their second NCAA Division II national title, defeating Southwestern Oklahoma State in double overtime to claim the trophy. Coach Gomez, who picked up his third Heartland Coach of the Year honor, became the 7th head coach in NCAA D2 women's basketball history to claim multiple titles. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast. Well, Coach, I want to thank you so much for giving up your time, coming on Talking Hoops with me. I've had the pleasure of sitting at TABC clinics and watching you present, learning from you before.
Awake?
Oh, yes, sir. That didn't fall asleep at all.
My.
This is an honor for me, man.
Well, I was just there. I was at your school for Thursday evening. Grapevine Faith. I know Texas, True Texas Hoop. Those players. I went and watched Argyle workout, and then went over there and watched that evening workout. And so,
that's awesome, man. I wish I
would be in there. I'd seen the gym on videos, on clips, and I thought it's great to be there.
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, it's a great facility and not a big school, but I feel like we try to take pride in everything we're doing and have a little bit of excellence. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, just quality people, the coaches there, and I just appreciate what you've done. You've done so much in so many areas for a long time. So you've made a good impact on the game and on people.
Well, man, I appreciate that. And it's, again, honor for me to get to talk with you. I had the pleasure of having Coach Duncan on. That's insane to have both of you at the same school, like the caliber of coaches right there. That's incredible.
Well, yeah, when I was coaching high school, he was at Trinity Christian here. I remember going over and visiting with him when I was coaching boys high school, trying to figure out what to do and how to do things, because he was always set a good standard. And so it's been wonderful having him here. His daughter played for us, and so that was incredibly helpful too.
How much interaction do you guys have? I mean, at the high school level, the girls coach is a couple offices down, and we get to talk. We work together quite a bit. What's that relationship like for you guys?
Yeah, very, very much a partnership. I mean, not only strategically. I mean, I steal stuff from him. He steals stuff from me. But it's the same. Right behind me, through the wall behind me, is his office, and
nice.
We talk every day. Work together on camps. We used to travel together, but once COVID hit, we sort of stopped doing that as far as teams traveling together. But very good partnership. Even 2 of our girls are dating 2 of their boys, and so
yeah, it's one family, right?
It really is. It honestly is. And I couldn't have been more excited when his son decided to come play here for him this next year. And it's one big. You're right. It's a good family here.
So 20 seasons. What's it like being at the same place for that long?
Yeah, that's a good question. I coached high school boys, so I was at one place for 7 years here in town, then another for 8. And so 15 years, and we lived in the same house, and we didn't have to move. Every day is a new adventure to me. There's no staleness to it. It doesn't get old. it's just a great place. I went to school here, so to me, it was like
Oh,
coming
nice.
back to my alma mater. My wife went to school here. So Lubbock's just a great place, and Lubbock Christian University has been amazing. And the people here, the growth of the school has been great. And so when I left Arlington High in 1984 to come to Lubbock, I thought I'd go back to the Metroplex where y'all are, and just it had never, it's just never happened. I've stayed here and loved it.
It's yeah, that's a I appreciate you sharing that because I think 10 years at Faith now, that's a long time to be at one place
Yeah.
in this business, right? And but I've kind of felt the same way. My goal is just to be faithful in this place. Haven't really felt led or pushed to go anywhere else, but it's always reassuring to me. I guess that's the word, to talk to somebody that feels a similar way about where he's at. And man, you just had incredible success. So this has been one that I've really been looking forward to.
Well, thanks. Even like for you there, that I understand the coaching profession is pretty transient. Sadly enough, even the coaching teams now, players are very transient. And when I came here a long time ago, I said, we're just going to make this the big time. We're going to do this as if it's the best. And it's just been never a call or a feeling of urge to change. I don't want to be lazy, and I don't want to be the bad side of contented, but I do want to be contented, and make sure we're still trying to get better. So we're always trying to find out what can we do better, and not just think, well, let's do the same thing again. That gets a little boring.
I love that you use that word content because I think it's usually painted in a negative way. Like the moment you get content, you're not growing anymore. That you've lost that edge or growth mindset. But I think complacent is the word that we're trying to
Yeah.
stay away from. But content, man, that's the secret to figure out how to be happy and be fully present where you are. Seems like you figured that out.
Well, the girls help a lot with that too. Just personalities of teams. To me, teams keep you ready to change and always looking for a new way. Even the strategy or the plays may not change much, but the people, and then the girls and just the dynamic of every year a new team, to me is the most exciting, fun thing because I love basketball, but I think I love teams more than I even love the sport.
I love that you said that because I think players look forward to the games. Like they can't wait to get through the fall, through the summer, the fall, through the practices before. Let's just start playing and start playing. But you're right on the money. When we start to not talk about culture, but put in our culture and set the foundation and then start to work through some of those interpersonal communication issues that always come up. Like that is the fun stuff, right?
Oh, it is. It's the challenge. And sometimes it's not always fun. It's the dynamic of figuring it out is a good challenge. Some years we do better than others with forming, but that is the sort of the joy is the building of team through ups and through downs, and how do you handle it? And every year the growth of each individual, even year to year, changes. So. I love that challenge, and it's a lot of fun. And we're ready to start again. At the end of every year, we did that today. Some of the coaches, we were looking back. What did we do well? What do we need to do different? What allowed us to have the success we had? And so that's always an evolving situation.
Can you walk me through that meeting a little bit? Just the way you did it. You just had a whiteboard and you're ready to write stuff down, or did you have an order of questions? What did that look like?
Yeah, we just got, we're so blessed here to have great assist. We have one assistant coach full-time position, but we have others that help. And so it was my assist. We had four others besides me. Coach Self, who's sort of stepping out of his role. Casey Wilson, my assistant's been here about 10 years, played for us, female, key to our program. Coach Pacheco, he's a volunteer assistant. And then my son, who's coming as an assistant next year. But really, I sat down and asked, okay, what are the things that we need to keep doing? What allowed us to have success? And we weren't talking strategy of defense, offense, just what allowed this team to really grow and form? Because this year we had no senior starters back. We were young. It was a team that graduated 5 seniors. So everybody was coming into a learning, growing situation. So I wanted to sit down and think, what did we do that helped our team grow to where they were at the end of the year.
Hmm.
Not that we have to redo all that, but I don't want to forget what we did that was successful, that helped form the team closeness. And, we talked through preseason activities. What did we do? Practice style. Uh, and I just had them tell me what they thought were the keys, what they saw from their vantage point of what made our team really grow. And some of it was good. It was the communication we gave them, the consistency we gave them. They had different thoughts of, demanding a lot of them, but also understanding we had to be patient with that. Uh, it was just a lot of good dialogue of what helped our team develop closeness. Uh, so we just sort of bantered back and forth for a while, and I just wrote down some notes and things that I want to think about in the coming weeks to make sure we duplicate. And there were very few things that we said we need to stop doing, that which was encouraging. There wasn't many things that were, but that's important too. What do we need to not do? And anything those came up, that was good to know.
That was going to be my follow-up question, was going to be how much came up that you were like, though this was something that didn't lead us closer as a team, didn't lead us to winning. Because I think as coaches, I'm guilty of just adding more and more and more. And sometimes that's not necessary. And if anything, we need to simplify and take away. So it's interesting that you said that some of those things came up too.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a big point that we did. We talked exactly what you just said. We talked about, we often went back and just simplified to the basics. We really taught, when you have a lot of veterans, you sort of don't feel like you have to teach, or you just will tell the youngers, watch the older ones. And we really had to slow down and teach the basic things, the decision-making processes. And I don't want to stop doing that. Every year, you don't want to just assume, oh, now they've got it.
Yeah.
We did
That's
grow a lot.
dangerous, right?
Yeah. And there's, I guess, both, always extremes are dangerous. I don't want to go too fast, but I also don't want to redo everything to where the kids get mentally unchallenged or bored with. And so it's a fine line to walk, to challenge the best players, but also not leave behind the lowest players. But usually we're not going to work to the lowest common denominator. We've got to get those kids pulling the younger ones behind them. But it's a good dynamic. We have kids that'll invest in each other outside practice. So they'll take the young kids and show them stuff, even when the coaches are done, just to help them get to speed. So that's very helpful.
Do you think that might be the difference between good and great coaches? I think a lot of good coaches may start at square one again, no matter who they have, and go very slowly through it. And they do a great job or a good job. And then there could be the others that just cram everything really quick and just keep piling on, even though but they're such effective teachers that they're able to make it. It seems like the art of it might be knowing exactly what that team needs, but not, like you said before, going too far either way, just towing that line. But that seems to be difficult.
I think that was the phrase. Even Casey Wilson, my female assistant, we were talking afterwards. She said, the thing I took away from that is giving them what they need. That's always, and being aware as coaches, sometimes we want to give them what we want. And sometimes what I want to give them is not going to help them. It may make me feel better, but it doesn't make them better. And so that awareness, and again, with a team of female athletes, that is even more key, I think, than with male athletes, of making sure they feel good about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they're getting what they need, as opposed to just playing the game. So they really need to have a good feeling about what's going on. And so that awareness, and it changes. I mean, next year they'll probably need some different things, but we've got to stay pliable as coaches to what they need, without going to the extreme of saying, well, whatever y'all need is what we're going to do.
How I was trying to think of how you figure out what that need is. What popped into my head was playing more live situations in practice, especially early on in the year. In those 2 or 3 weeks that we have, with maybe a scrimmage or two, especially at the high school level, I've been guilty of drilling them to my practice plan is 2.5 hours of just breakdown. Hey, that was great, fellas. We learned a lot today, but I don't really know. I wasn't able to know what areas are proficient. We're already good here. We don't need to spend much more time, and we're lacking in this area. Brian McCormick, who wrote the book Fake Fundamentals. It's a really interesting ebook, but he talked about starting off practice every day after some small dynamic warm up, or he had some really weird ideas with that, like dodgeball or frisbee golf or just something outside, but practicing or scrimmaging 5-on-5 for 5 to 10 minutes and just being able to kind of see where they're at in that moment. And based on that, we're going to spend, guys, you know what? Ball screens, we really had little recognition of how we're guarding it and what those principles are. We're going to spend more time. Other than that, how else do you, as a coach, do you learn what exactly your team needs?
Yeah. So much. I mean, that is a season-long process, a lifelong process. But even late in the year, from we're still we've got to change this. We did not do this well. So I do think it is the competition, reactions in competition. I think watching video with them, we're able to do maybe a little more than a high school coaches might have time in terms of throughout the day. I mean, that's such a great teacher for us, is the use of video of practice, of games, of individual players. Some of that is just the individual communication outside of practice, bringing them in, sitting and watching with a person as opposed to with a whole team. But as far as that, that's really a good point, because we try not to over drill. Yeah. I mean, I've heard people say, and again, there's so many ways of doing it. You don't drill it till you get it right. You drill it until you can't get it wrong. And there's some value in that. To me, the mental freshness and the joy of practice is more important than getting it right over the drudgery of getting it, drilling it. But again, different ways of doing things. I'm not saying this is the right way, but the way we do things is we practice no more than an hour and 15 minutes. We try to do it fast. We try to do it with energy. And so we're not going to overdo any one thing. We're going to try to move fast. We'll come back to something later if we need to. But so that's a good point of the competition to us. We do most everything live, maybe 3-on-3 to 5-on-5.
Sure.
There's not too much undefended actions, or when you're playing defense without offense, not just stance drills. We're trying to play.
You mentioned a little bit about film. Maybe hard to use like a percentage, but what percentage would you say is the whole team together to those pulling individuals or small groups in?
Yeah, it's probably, 80 together as a team. There'll just be times during the year we'll pull some individuals in, maybe even 90 to 10. But we try to watch early in the year a lot of video of ourselves in practice. But a lot of it these days, we just send them the practice video on their phones. Yeah. They can watch. And so some of this isn't always, coach teaching, because that gets old too. What I was encouraged this year is our players, if the practice video didn't get put up, but in a timely manner, they would send a message, is practice going to get put up? So I knew they were.
That's a good sign.
And so when your best players are wanting to learn and get better, again, that's sort of where those moments you're like, they're getting this.
Yeah.
They're even teaching each other, which is way more valuable than me teaching them. And so, video is vital. And these days it's so quick and easy to get. And so not to use it is almost a travesty.
I wanted to talk with you a little bit about meeting with players. And I think we kind of rolled into that a little bit, because one stretch or goal of mine for next season is to be organized with when I meet with them, because I typically only have individual meetings when something's wrong. Watch film with a guy one-on-one when there's an issue that needs to be corrected. But what if I brought them in on a regular basis, and sometimes it was really just to celebrate them, or even have nothing to do with basketball at all? But how do you meet with players?
Yeah, that's very, very important. And I feel like even in high school, I started to see this. I used to meet with the players and their parents even before school started. At one point, right before school started, to let them know, here's where I see your kid playing, JV, varsity, all that. Just really preemptive strikes of communication to me are vital. But here, as soon as school starts, first 2 weeks, we'll meet with every kid individually, 30 minutes. A lot of times we'll give them questions, just sort of get to know them. Some of them, the kids that have been around a while, I'll have them bring questions for us as coaches, what they want to know. So we'll spend at least 30 minutes with each kid the first 2 weeks of school, just strategic. After practice gets going, usually right about a little before the season's going to start, 2 weeks or so, we'll have other individual meetings with sort of when we define roles for the kids, where we'll sort of tell them, here's what you're doing well, here's what we expect you to do in games. May tell a kid, you're probably not going to play, unless we're up 25 with 2 minutes left, just to really define what they can expect going into games. Midway through the season, usually around Christmas, we'll meet again in that middle of the year when roles begin, maybe to transition a little, either to reinforce, hey, you're doing this good. Hey, your role may be changing. It may be getting better, or yours may be getting lesser, depending on, but just so they're not in confusion of what's going on with my playing time, whatever. When the season's over, we'll always then meet again, another meeting, and looking back at the year, what they need to do. But at least 3 times a year, we're going to have, 30 minutes, sit down and let's work through things.
Yeah.
Life's, family, relationships, boyfriends. I mean, all these different things that we want to make sure we're up to date on. And then basketball and things they see. And then throughout the year, we'll meet with different groups, like our point guards. We meet a lot like that. But so those are in addition to just the, hey, come by for 10 minutes. I want to watch video with you.
I do. That is one part. I don't envy the recruiting part that you have to do as a college coach. And that was one thing I saw as a player in college, was just how hard those coaches had to work, the hours. I talk with their families, and so I don't. But one thing I do envy is the amount of time throughout the day that you have to meet with players. But as a high school coach, I can't be an excuse to not. It was a quote I just saw. Something about, if you don't have time, it's more of you don't have a lack of time, you have a lack of habits or priorities. Like, I like that. Don't make the excuse that we don't have time to meet with players, because you're right on the money. X's and O's are important, but the relationships, that has to be first, right?
Oh, certainly. I mean, for us, yeah. And again, I don't want to be stereotypical of male and female, but God made us different. I mean, we're very, very different. And I've always said that for females, girls need to feel good to play good. And I think guys they feel good if they play good. So, I mean,
I like that.
Good and they feel
I like
good that I think for us, to them to feel, and when they feel a part, like whatever their role is important, and they can understand it, and they're all in. It's the confusion, it's the lack of clarity that usually creates that frustration in a player or in a team. And so it's important for us even to define those roles in front of the team. So not only do I tell the kid, this is your role, this is what you need to do, but then I tell the team, this is what I told this person. So there's no, sometimes a kid will leave a meeting and maybe misconstrue what was said, like about what their role was going to be. But when the whole team hears what was told, it just takes away some of that uncertainty. So to me, the clarity, on my desk, I have the scripture in Ephesians, speaking the truth in love. So where we're just trying to be honest with them, encouraging, but also telling them what they need to hear, not just what they want to hear. And so those things are really important to me. And we make it important to communicate well. And having a female assistant that I call my interpreter, because she can sort of, she can tell if they're understanding what we're getting across or not. She might come back to me later and help me understand better.
That's huge right there. It's wise that you saw the need for that, for sure.
Yes.
Couple golden nuggets there that I thought of. One is, I got to listen to Danny Henderson this weekend in East Texas at a clinic, and he talked about having that, because you've been a high school coach, so you do know the what it's like to have the parent involvement like we do at this level. It's more, right? And he said he was so honest and early on with those players that he knew and their families. He said he wanted to take away any hope that they had, that they might play. And he said, guys, that sounds inhumane, but he thought it was the most humane thing he could do. And obviously it wasn't like it was probably in truth and love. Like it wasn't harsh the way he would tell them, but the whole idea is to be brutally honest and not to string players along if you do know or see. I think my question for you is let's just say you have, even at your level, a player that you're not sure early on, what role they could have, and but then as the season's going, they tend to move a little bit out of that playing lineup and out of the rotation. They come to you and they say, Coach, that great question, what can I do to earn more playing time? And deep down, just they're behind a few people. There's really not much. How do you, besides just patronizing them in that moment, and what do you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those, for us, the main recruiting message I tell parents and kids, and hopefully it all starts here, is honestly our tagline here, our girls will tell you, is you're not that important. And so for a kid, whenever they start showing signs that what I want is more important than what the team, and again, some kids, everybody wants to play, and I don't ever begrudge a kid wanting to be competitive. Yeah. We want you to get better. We want you to contribute, and it might be a deal where, hey, next year this time you'll be playing more, but right now it's just not that way. So that's one of those that just have to say, listen, you just need to keep working, and if your time comes, perform. Some kids, day in, day after practice, they just don't play good, and then they wonder why they don't play in games. Some kids may play good in practice, get in games, and not play as well in those moments. And so a lot of times and we might watch a video with them, say, here's what we're talking about. These are the plays that maybe allow us or cause us not to have enough confidence right now to put you in these situations. Or, hey, these are the good plays. This is what you need to do more of. But at the same time, it's never, okay, well, we're going to give you shots and you're upset.
Yeah.
There have been players we've had over the years that we've said, I mean, if you're not going to be able to enjoy playing, if you're not playing games, we'll find you a school. We can help find a school that you can play if it's all that matters to you is playing. But if you need to see what else you're giving and getting out of this. And if it's not just basketball. I mean, hopefully you're receiving locker room relationships. You're receiving more than you're, just putting in. But at the same time, you need to be putting in a lot, not expecting anything back. So that's a hard one. It comes down to personalities and communication, even with players, of what they can handle, what I know they handle. But I don't ever want to give them, like you're saying, false hope, which then if you just drag it along, it becomes, he said I was going to and I didn't. I have the harder reality than what they hope.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
There might be a difference too. Obviously, from being at the high school and college level, like you're recruiting every player there with the expectation that they can help you win, like they can play. And sometimes you find out that it's not a great fit after the fact. But at the high school level, where at a small private school where I'm at, we've got 6 or 7, maybe 8 guys, but then a lot of guys that maybe have come up through the program that do want to be a part of it. I think maybe the challenge for me or guys in that position then is to, yes, like, and you said it, like there has to be more to this than just basketball that they're getting out of it. And maybe helping them to come around and see those great attributes about being a part of a team, being a part of this program. But then also, I think it's up to me to find their value, and let them, there has to be more that they can bring to our program than just what they do on the floor, and maybe giving them confidence in that, because I feel like deep down, a lot of players just do want to feel, whether they are playing or not, that they're bringing value and that they feel valued from the team and the coach?
Yeah. I mean, we see it, from freshmen to seniors. I mean, we've had through the years, kids that freshman, sophomore don't play much. Junior year, maybe play a little, but don't ever really break in. And even as seniors have been some of our best leaders. I mean, we had, even a player this year that early in the year was starting, ended up late in the year and really not playing. But one of our most positive, helpful, didn't try to do too much in terms of team leadership, but really helped everybody. I mean, those people are vital. I mean, they're just rare and they're very, very valuable. And, and then there's some as freshmen who you don't expect to play and they end up playing. And how do they handle that? Because that's not easy to handle. Sometimes it may give them a bigger impression of value on the team than it should. Those are such dynamic, unusual situations that I just don't feel like this is the blueprint we use and it always works.
Yeah.
Some of it's just personalities and team by team, the dynamic of that player to the rest of the team. There's so many intricacies to really forming what what I call just a team. I mean, that can handle whatever comes, the good and the bad, and they don't waver. They're consistent.
Yeah.
And but that takes a lot of maturity. It takes a lot, and I appreciate our players because they've shown a lot of maturity to handle a lot of this.
Coach, I love the "you're not that important" tagline. I think that's so countercultural because since from a young age, especially with parents growing up now with cell phones, like some of these kids have been videoed so much and shown their videos and their photos, and it's the whole world is revolved around them to where when they come to your program and then they're told, you know what, you're not that important. Now, obviously, within that context, like they have to understand that context because in the grand scheme of things, of course they're important. But how do you explain that to them, and how does that work with your culture?
Yeah, really, whenever we start, even in the recruiting process, from the very first time we talk with these kids, we tell them that right up front that, listen, I mean, if you come here, everything's not going to revolve around you. We're not going to, when people come on recruiting business, we don't put their picture on the big video board and provide them with all these, parade type situations that aren't going to be real when they're in school here. We want them to see you're going to be just one of the team. We get them around our girls, for our girls can determine what their personality is, which is always huge for us. But just to let them know, we're going to have a great team. We're going to be as good as we can be, whether you come or not. But if you come here, you're going to have to give yourself up. You're not going to get what you want. To me, there's a great attraction to that. People, when you get down to it, you really don't want everything for yourself. That's a miserable way to live.
Yeah.
And these days, so many people are trying it and finding out how miserable it is. That quality and the quality of patience are just two things that we've totally lost. And so for us here, they're going to know you're going to have to be patient if you want to come play here, because it's not going to happen quick. It might, but usually it takes a few years for you even to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah.
For some of the players. And so, patience and the sacrificial attitude of it's not about me, whatever it takes to help the team. It's just a constant reminder that we have to tell them. We tell the parents that their parents are going to love them and want the best for them more than they do for the team. I mean, that's just a fact, and that's fine. That's the way it should be. But as coaches, that's our decision making is not based on what's good for you. But we want to tell them that right up front. So if a kid's wanting to be the prima donna that can really play, that's awesome. And there's a place that you may go somewhere and beat us because you're that good of a player, but it's not our locker room is going to be what we want it. Whether on the court it works out perfectly or not.
And I think that's the great dilemma. Almost, I mean, obviously, what do you want? You want the most talented player who also is so high character and selfless. But
yeah,
those are pretty rare. But I would imagine your culture is special in the way it is because sometimes you might be giving up a little bit more talent, like you just said, but you're going to have the right mindset and the right bodies on the bus that's going to take it the direction you really want it to go.
Well, yeah, that's the desire, and I'm sure every coach, has that desire. It's just we just have to demand we're not going to trade one for the other. We talk about wanting kids to be teachable, to be together, to be trustworthy. We can trust them, thankful kids, but we also want to be tough. I mean, we have kids that are tough-minded, but I think you learn toughness through, grinding around, through not getting what you want, through having to, maybe give up yourself for someone else. And then you find out, man, I really like that. And it just develops a mindset of others, thinking about it. It's really hard to be in a bad or to be selfish if you're thinking about someone else. Just do something for somebody else. And that's what we're trying to get across. And these are going to be tremendous wives and mothers in the years ahead, just because they really example that. So we're fortunate to get kids from great families.
Yeah.
We're not reforming these kids. We're not getting players and we're not all of a sudden making them these good people. Our job is really easy. We just get good players that are good kids and put them together.
Yeah.
And that's all we're doing as coaches. It's just, you got to find those right kids.
Speaking of toughness, I had a teammate that was 6'8" or 9, big and strong, could really shoot it, coach. Like he was our best 3-point shooter, but he was just not a banger. Like he just the best rebounder. Back when I played, the message boards were coming around, and he would just get blasted on those things about the lack of toughness, how he was never on the block. But I mean, people didn't really appreciate then a great shooting big like he was. Mm-hmm. Like now, I think he'd be appreciated a lot more. But
right,
my question, I guess, is, can you create toughness? Does there already have to be a level of it there, or like at a place like Grapevine Faith Christian School, where I've told, like, if they're here, their lives have been pretty good if they're at this school. Right. Where do you land on that?
Yeah, because you want kids that are compassionate, caring, kids that think of others first, but you also want them to have a little fight and scrap in them. Last summer, every summer we read a book as a team. This summer, we're going to read, we just started Unoffendable by Brent Hansen, but it's a great book. It's not even an athletic book. Last year we read Toughness, the Jay Billis book, Toughness.
Nice.
Because I thought we were going to need a little bit of a mindset of just a fighting mindset. So anyways, going through that, and it's really a really good book. And it talked about you can't be tough alone. You have to be tough together. You need people to be tough. But he went through all kinds of basketball analogies. Really good book. I think it can be developed. I do think there's some repetition of physical things, mental things that can develop it and improve it. Some kids just have it. And some kids may not ever really, it's just not maybe natural for them. But I think they can be put in situations that they sort of see the value of fighting through things, being tough-minded. And so, again, it's not even we had some Marines come do sort of like a boot camp with us before the season, just those little things of just endure it, fight through it. So toughness, so often we think it's the flexing, it's the stepping over someone on the court. To me, it's I charged, I made a bad play, I'm going to help my opponent up, give the ball to the ref, and go back and play defense. I mean, people may not think that that's very tough, but that takes incredible toughness to not respond negatively to something. It's the body language you have. It's not the showing up anybody or the great play. It's the hidden things that you keep yourself from doing, maybe is more the toughness than is the things that you do.
I think you're right on the money. I think that's the challenge maybe for coaches is helping your players to understand, what does toughness mean to you? Because if you just say we're not very tough, well, there's going to be guys that automatically think we need to fight. I mean, coaches, I'm not going to go into this story because it would take too long, but have you ever heard of Horatio Llamas?
I have not.
Okay, so he was. I went to play in Mexico for a week. This was in my late 20s. It was a group of Americans. We went to play against the Mexican Olympic team, and we're traveling around to play six games over 7 days with them. And basically, like the Washington Generals are just supposed to get beat by the Globetrotters. That's what we were for this team to drum up some excitement for their Olympic team. Well, they had Horatio Llamas, who was a 7 foot, 300-pound guy. He had played in the NBA for the Phoenix Suns, largest human being I've ever seen. So, long story short, to show toughness to my teammates because we weren't playing very well, I picked a fight with him, and he broke my eye socket. And it ended up being it's one of my greatest moments of all time, but it's the dumbest moment of all time. And there's a little town in Mexico that they hopefully they still remember that moment. But that's what I think players think when we're saying toughness. But to your point, in our style of play, Coach, toughness is shooting the next three after you've missed four, but you know you're supposed to shoot that fifth one. Toughness for us is getting the ball out and upping it fast and continuing to play with pace, even though the other team is scoring against us, not letting our joy diminish. I think that's maybe the challenge, is that we do a better job of, instead of like toughness is on our board, but if I don't really show them or tell them what toughness means, I'm going to have, just like shot selection, I'm going to have 5 different dudes thinking tough is 5 different things.
Right. Yeah. Good point of just explaining it well with actions. To me, it's always, we talk about what does it look like, not what does it look like when you see it. And so even showing video clips, there have been times I've shown video clips of negative foul reactions after, I said, that is not what we're going to do. I mean, you don't want to show them bad examples, but sometimes we have to learn from that. But, that is not toughness.
Yeah.
This over here, or even a response to a turnover, what do we do? So really, defining it well, and then celebrating even in practice, saying that's what we need right there, as opposed to, we try to catch them doing right, not punish them from doing wrong. Different ways of doing practice, but we really we're not doing any negative running, we try to find them, hey, that's what we want. Let's mimic that. As opposed to punishing something for being wrong.
Now, I think you could say this goes back to culture from day one and the types of players that you're recruiting. But has it ever been? Because I love the idea of you focusing on what they're doing well and trying to promote that. Because typically, players, in my opinion, they want to please, and when they hear someone else being praised for something, odds are they're not going to go the opposite direction. Because again, if you have those players, then what are we doing? Like you got to wonder why they're even on your team to begin with, that because they're not buying in. Let's say the effort dips, or what is a non-negotiable for you that, hey, at this point we just got to get on the line, or there has to be something team-wide that's a negative consequence.
Yeah, to me, the mental mistakes of coming out just not mentally, sometimes physically you're going to be a little off, but just the mental, we know, just a drill. We just showed what we're doing, and we've done it every day, or I explained it enough to where they should know. Those are things early on. The lack of clarity and the lack of focus, that's usually they know that's not a good way to go. The physical mistakes, the turnovers, sometimes those are just good plays by the defense. Sometimes when you're coaching your team in practice, a good play by one team is a bad play for the other team. So it's hard to sometimes, gauge, is that punishable, or is that just really good play? But it's when we honestly have not had, it's been a while since we have just kids not playing hard.
And then that's what I thought it might be a hard question for you to answer, because you're recruiting the right kind of kids. But
I'm telling you, it's been a long, long time since I just felt like, no, we're just not going hard. Let's just go to the track and run.
Yeah.
And so, again, I appreciate our players, and they just hold each other to that standard. If it ever is, I might look at one of the leaders, say, hey, you need to get them, and they'll take care of it. and let the players sort of self-correct quickly instead of me blowing up and having a temper tantrum or something. And so, yeah, that is sort of a hard question. We don't deal with that.
That's fair. That's fair. There's probably a lot of high school coaches that are like, "Oh yeah, I deal with that every day," and
Sure, and
and
understandable. And
yeah,
that's not to their discredit, because again, they're taking the players that are coming to play. I mean, they're not.
and they're
They
still
don't.
becoming, like they're still
Sure.
becoming and forming, and a lot of times, I mean, these behaviors that we see in practice, I mean, those are learned somewhere from somewhere, and so we're at Faith, we talk about partnering with parents, and sometimes that's easier said than done.
Certainly. Yeah. And there's, we have at the top of our locker room going down to the court, the top landing says ignore the noise. And at the bottom of the stairs says protect the team.
Hmm.
But because there's so much noise especially for y'all, and in the age those kids are in the high school cage. And then even in some areas where there's so many other AU coach or a trainer or all these people that want to have some say in what happens and how a kid plays, and they just got to learn to ignore the noise and just take care of their team. I mean, but it's constant noise these days.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is. They've got to learn. We've got to learn to shut up and listen. And those kids need to learn to turn stuff off. They
Hmm.
have to develop that skill, because even this year, we had one time I said, bring a book to the gym. And we sat for 30 minutes and they just read a book in silence together. I just said, we just need to, because some of them don't like to read. They need to learn to read. I think everybody needs to learn to like to read,
Yeah.
just to discipline themselves that you can actually sit for 30 minutes quietly without sleeping and without watching something on a screen. And it went by so fast for them. They were like, wow, they enjoyed the time. And a lot of them like to do that on their own. But it was just, I wanted to make a point of sometimes you got to slow down and cut the noise out.
What made you think to do that? I'm always fascinated with when coaches talk about. I was watching the Ted Lasso episode a few weeks ago where he takes them to the season 3. He takes them instead of practicing to the sewers to learn about the sewer system, and there's like, but it was just on a whim. Like, what made you think to change the routine and to do something different like that?
Yeah, I think it was just it was sort of a time of year. I think it was near the before Christmas break and finals. There was just sort of a lot of hecticness going on in life, and stress and strain. And that's when we have to learn to just calm down and take a moment, breathe deeply. So I think that's what led me to it, is that, and I know a couple of our players too. There's a few that don't like to read. They've said, yeah, I don't like to read. And I just wanted them to find out you can actually do it. And so it was probably both of those things combined that got me to say, we're going to sit there and do it.
You've probably had so many great leaders in your program as players, and then your assistant coaches, but also in the coaching community. You go to TABC and you're just, a place like you're surrounded by them. What's one or a couple qualities that you see in great leaders?
Yeah. To me, one big one I thought is just a consistency, to where there's just not a lot of variance in terms of emotion, behavior. And again, the emotion's awesome, but just a consistency from year to year, team to team. I think that's real important, of even as players that are consistent players and they can be counted on. I think people that are just willing to get out of themselves and give themselves up for something, sacrificial, that'll, yeah. Simon Sinek, you don't know if you're reading his books, but leaders always eat last, or leaders eat last. And, get back to the why. Just always remember, why are we doing this? Self-reflective people. I think another quality I think is important is to have some humor about you. I always say, take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. And just the ability to laugh at yourself and laugh at situations. I mean, we've got to see the humor in life, even in the tragedy that's around it. There's so much crud going on.
Yeah.
But we need, especially as people of faith, we should see it with a lighthearted, joyful outlook. Like, I have faith, I have confidence it's not an arrogance, but a confidence. This is going to work out. I have a confidence in what's going on and what I'm doing. Uh, and it gives you a joy as opposed to a just an always an over serious, stressed out attitude. Uh, that's hard. As a coach, you want to be serious, but we got to be able to laugh, and we've got to be able to laugh at things. And so, as a leader, I think as the team needs to see someone that's serious, competent, but also that is joyful.
Yeah, that's a great point. As a believer, also, you hear a lot today about doing things to live your best life, but the reminder is that this isn't supposed to be our best life. Mm-hmm. Like our best life is ahead of us. It's what's next. This is supposed to be hard. It's going to be hard. And
well,
so
that's a great point. We've been fortunate to have some good things happen, but I've said a lot. There's not a lot in Scripture. There's not a lot of national championships. There are not. You don't see a lot of, celebration of I did this and accomplishments. I mean, there's a struggle. There's suffering. If there is success, it's usually followed by failure because
tons of failure. Yeah, tons of failure,
and you get caught. So, to me, like you said, the live the best life now. I mean, really?
I understand, but it's short-sighted. Like I understand, like obviously now, if we're talking about living to a standard of excellence every day, knowing who we represent and who we're trying to glorify in everything that we do, all for that. But to think as if that this is the best that it's going to be, oof, I think we have a very narrow view of what's ahead.
Certainly. Yeah. We're short-sighted and again, impatient. And but yeah, you're exactly right. Just to remember, this isn't the best that it gets, and even as good as it can be, and we want to, like you're saying, excel. I don't think as Christians we're excused to be mediocre. It's not an excuse to not do our best.
That's right.
But it's not a guarantee that the world will see you as a success because that's such a moving target. A success to one person is totally different to another. And it's just a dangerous trap to get in.
The cool thing with that too is you can almost you can almost never fail. You can almost you never have a bad season when you're defining success in the correct way. If it's only the worldly success of the most wins the championship, well, crap.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a failure for 10 years then because I've never won it, but again, even in those years where maybe the scheme doesn't line up with your players the way you thought, you had injuries to your main players, which golly, you look at your greatest years, odds are not a lot of injuries those years. Yeah. And, but I think when you have another standard of excellence or success, you almost ensure having that every year and rarely having failures.
Yeah. We talk about culture, the phrase between having a culture of success or a successful culture. And I think the way of looking at those is really different. And to me, just to have a team that you can lose with and feel good about is the best thing in the world. Just, there's a joy in the wins. There's a joy in the loss. There's just a joy in the team. And again, we want to compete well. If every year, if we can just be as good as we can be, that's all we can do. That's what I wanted this team. I feel like there's years our team, we were as good as we could be. And it doesn't compare to anybody else. It's just we achieved all that we could, because sometimes we don't. And those are the times we got to figure out, what are we doing wrong that's keeping us from really achieving to the level we should. And that's what I'm right now. I'm going through that process for next year. What do we need to do to make sure we achieve the level we can?
Yeah. Coach, can you unpack that a little bit more? A culture of success versus successful culture.
Yeah. I think it seems like our society now it's a culture of success. If you make it big, whatever, if you've won this, if you're seen as rich, you're seen as social media star, whatever. It just celebrates that success, and it's so fleeting. But I think a successful culture will remain. It'll develop people. It's more long lasting. Like you talked about, things that last. Just having a successful culture will produce people that are long term. It's not a short term, look, I've achieved something and now I'm there. A culture of success. I just think of, already probably 2 years ago, who won the national championship in D1? It's like you forget so quickly.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it's like the pinnacle. Now but it's really not. I mean, Super Bowls, it's always the biggest thing in the world for a week, and then it's gone.
What I loved it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, please ask. I'm sorry.
I'd love to, in that moment, it's almost impossible, but in that moment, they win it. Maybe not. Okay. Not in the moment. They win it at any level. They go through the after, and it's the evening now, or possibly the next morning. And what's that moment? What, Coach, you've won national championships. What was the moment? Like, is it on to the next? I've heard of some people almost feel like, man, is that it? Like, is that really all that we were working for? Like, it doesn't feel what I thought. I don't know. I think that'd be interesting to see those high achievers, what they feel once they've actually achieved the thing that everybody says they needed to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. The first time in 2016, we won. We went 35-0. We got to play in Bankers Life. Before, it was the D1, D2, D3 all together, like they did this year in Dallas. It was the first time they'd done that. And so we had a season where that was the one year we probably were one of the two best teams in the country. So, because a lot of times, like the other times we won, we weren't. We just happened to win. But it was one of those seasons that when that game was over, there was a relief. But that night, the next day, it was fatigue. It was almost like it was a coming down off of just a 4-day marathon. I was worn out, and it wasn't revitalizing or energizing. It was almost a crash. The other times, and even this year, after I've been energized at the end of the seasons, but the other times we went up, my first thought was almost, I felt bad for the other team. I almost was like, oh, our kids are celebrating. I had a bit of that's hard to get here and not win.
Yeah.
I mean, to have won, honestly, to have won 3 times, it doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. And there's so many better coaches that have coached for 30, 40, 50 years and never even been to a championship game. And so to have been there and have opportunities to win, it almost makes you feel small and really a lot of humility. Like, I don't even know why this has happened. And I feel bad for those who it didn't happen for, because I know I don't necessarily deserve these moments. And so there's a joy for your players, but there's a sort of I sort of feel bad. So it's a different feeling, but that first one was really an exhaustion. The other ones, I've sort of been like, wow, that's sort of fortunate. and
well, that happened.
Yeah. And like, well, I guess we're going to have another season next year. And because then you become a captive to expectations, which I don't ever want to be, to where people think, well, that's just the way it should happen. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, people don't understand how many things have to go right in your way for it to even happen once.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, in sports, there's so many variables that are out of our control.
Yep.
And when it goes your way, you're just like, I'm thankful. I don't know how it happened, but it did.
And what a great reminder to even go back almost to the point you had as far as in practice, looking for those positives and celebrating those minor victories. For a lot of us, that's going to be the key to keeping a team going, because whether we want to say it or not, there's a point in the season. Some coaches may even know before the season starts, it's very improbable that we win the state championship this year. Not impossible, but then the key is, okay, we still want to to your point, reach the high our ceiling, or like Stan Bonowitz says, gas out. We still want to gas out as a team.
Yeah.
But the key of doing that and moving along is finding those small victories throughout the season.
Yeah. Yeah. And handling the hard things well. And that team, because a few years later, I think we were going into Christmas break, we were like 5-4. We'd gone 35-0, and a few years later, we're maybe 6-5. And we were in just sort of a struggle, weren't playing well. I came back and then got on a run, and that team ended up playing amazing all the way to the very end. And it was one of those years we finally got to be as good as we could and gave ourselves a chance. But there are years where we could play perfect and still maybe not beat the best team, but that's fine. Let's just play good and see what happens. And that's the fun of sports, when your team really plays well. And we, even after wins, if we don't play well, our kids know that that's not good enough. I mean, that's just not quality basketball. Even if we happen to win, that's not going to make us think that covers the pain of not playing well. So it just needs to be that day. Do your best. We always talk about going 1-0 today. Love the Lord your God in all your heart. Love your neighbor as yourself. At the end of the day, go back tonight. Did I do that today? If I did, I went 1-0.
Nice.
If I didn't, tomorrow I need to do better. Thankfully, his mercies are new every morning. And so we get to go again. In sports, it's similar. Let's just go win the drill, win the play. It's so small and compared to the big things we're talking about. But in basketball, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Do the little things. I just think we'll have a chance to be basketball successful. It's always like, I want to be careful with that. But if we do those things every day, we'll give ourselves a chance.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. So I love hearing about standards and pillars of programs, and because I think it's more than just a slogan, more than just what's on a wall or a poster or a t-shirt. It's actually how you live. So I'd love to hear about your standards and pillars, but then also how that culture drives performance.
Yeah. I think even from back in high school, something that I sort of felt like we've landed on is Philippians chapter 2. It says, don't do anything out of selfishness or conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Each of you should look not only to your own interest, but the interest of others. And then he goes on, Paul writes, he says, your attitude should be the same as that of Jesus Christ, who is in very nature God, didn't consider equality with God something to be held on to. And he goes on through that chapter to say, well, then obviously at the end, Jesus is exalted above all things. But to me, just the simplicity of considering others first as a team, as teammates, honoring each other above yourselves, and just even when you have opportunity to maybe be exalted, to give yourself up. In practice, we joke about if, you won't even dive on the floor for that ball. I mean, Jesus carried his cross and died for you. Why can't you take a charge? Why can't you block out? I mean, when you compare them, they're not comparable.
Right.
But I mean, I guess a big pillar for us is that it's just encapsulated in that truth. And it goes to you're not that important. It goes to, do something give yourself up for your teammate. That has to be the foundation to us. I mean, family is a foundational pillar. My assistant, she has 3 kids. They're with us all the time. My wife travels with us. Just the understanding of family and what it looks like as a team and as a normal family. I mean, that's really important for us. Community. I think I've seen that somebody said, culture eats strategy for breakfast, whatever. I've always thought community is even greater than culture. Just the community that is formed. I mean, you can have a lot of principles and a lot of standards, but if they're not together, the players aren't together. I just think about the early church. It conquered civilization because the people said, look how they love each other.
Yeah.
The early church didn't have a great strategy of gospel meetings. They just loved, and they loved each other, and people were so amazed. So to me, when we've had people come to games, this makes me so happy to hear people say they love to come to watch our teams play, to watch the bench, just to watch how engaged our team on the bench is for the kids on the court. So to me, the community is probably the undergirding pillar of everything. Obviously, without faith, it's hard to have real community. But so to me, those things are what we're just trying to build this on. And then, I mean, if we're talking about playing the game, we just want do the simple things well. I think in life, I think Paul writes somewhere else, be wise. Don't be foolish. Don't do stupid things. Be very careful how you live then, as wise, not as unwise, because the days are evil. I mean, people ask, what's your strategy? To me, my strategy is let's just don't be stupid. So when you're playing the game, just don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Because there's so many plays in a game that, like, if that person wouldn't have done that, I mean, I still go back to Duke losing to North Carolina when Banchero saved the ball under his basket. North Carolina gets a 3-point play. That poor guy, he's a great player, but that was a stupid play at the moment.
Yeah.
Even in our life, we do stupid. So that concept of don't live life stupid and don't play the game stupid, which is dangerous because situationally, at one point, a shot a person takes is stupid. At another point of the game, that shot was the right thing to do. And so we got to learn.
Well, life's not fair, and they need to know that as well. But it all comes down to, full circle here again is concept, style of play, teaching them knowing what's smart and what's stupid. One thing I've observed a lot is my son is now kind of in that high school select world. It's not these coaches, it's not their fault, but they don't practice a lot and they just play games. In games, though, they're holding these players to standards that they have not. And I know personally, because I've been there and I've watched, they haven't established what the standards are through practice. So I think when you can tell a play, like, guys, we want to be simple, we want to not do stupid things. That sounds great, but that's where the real teaching lies, is letting them know exactly what that is.
Yeah, great point. We just thinking of how we usually, first practice of the year, we usually will practice the 12:01 a.m. the first day we can practice. So we want to be there the very first fourth day of classes. I know exactly when it's going to be this year. And a lot of times the first drill we'll play 5-on-5, and we'll just say, we want you to play. I just want you to make the wise play. We've got to trust you to make, and not even just the smart play, but the wise play. What's the wisest thing to do in this moment? That's a good play, but that could have been a better play. And we just let them play and talk about decisions. Why did you do that? What did you see? So try to right away to establish that on our team. And not that I'm the arbiter of wisdom, but when it comes to the court, we want us to be the ones that are determining what we want them to do. Sometimes a player is like, wow, that's a great idea. I didn't think about that. How many times our players have taught us is amazing. But you're right, just that learning to play the smart, wise way in terms of how we want to play. Another team may play totally different, and that's awesome for them, and they're successful that way. So we don't have a patent on this is the right way, but it's just the way we want to do it.
And I like the way you communicated that too. Let's just say hypothetically a player tries to do something within your system, but there's a even wiser or better way or better decision they could have made. Instead of that's dumb, don't do that. What you should have done is this. Like Gannon Baker says, you almost celebrate the try a little bit. Hey, I really appreciate what you see there and what you're going for, but there's another idea, and I think that's where you almost you bring them in, as where it's you and that player figuring this thing out together instead of you up here, they're down here. You're an idiot. Do it the way I'm telling you. Because I mean, I played for someone like that, but I think the better style of teaching or learning. And I think a lot of people are aware of it now. And golly, in the world of college basketball, where players are, Frank Martin said, it's just, you've always had players transfer, but now they're transferring from good situations. Like there's nothing even wrong, like, golly, I would imagine it's even more important to have a healthy culture and to also teach a certain way to where you're really helping them grow.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's vital for us, is to keep that positivity. And again, it's not, sometimes it's just personality. Some people teach with a little more heat than others, but we really want to dialogue it out to where the team is engaged in the process and not, us telling them everything. Because a lot of times in practice, we'll just, hey, you get your teams together and talk about what's going on. We do. That was one thing that came out of our coaches meeting today, is we need to keep doing that in practice. Of it's timeout, but we're not telling them; they're telling each other, and that so that type of environment is really important for us. And you're right; people are quick to change, quick to leave, and for us to have kids that, even if they're not playing, just want to be here with this team is vital, and that's really helpful.
What a great point too about yelling. That doesn't mean that you're teaching. Like, it doesn't mean that, but also the other side, yelling doesn't mean that you're being demeaning. I think sometimes just through passion and excitement, that yell is going to come out. And you, like you said, you kind of done it a couple of times. You just got to grit, like there's nothing wrong with that. And again, to think that, oh, I've got to be careful about letting them see my energy and passion. I don't know. I think that there's a part of the humility that you've discussed quite a bit that allows for that, but then also to be conscious of, just because you're saying things loud doesn't mean that they're receiving it or you're teaching it well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I saw from someone a quote: if you're the relationship is invested, the harder you coach, or the better the relationship, the harder you can coach them. And it's usually the case if you feel like you've got a good connection. And then some kids, you got to know what they'll need. Some kids don't respond at all to that. And so we've got to be wise enough with our players. She can't handle it, but she needs it. Yeah, communication and coaching styles, all those things. Still, there's so much, such a great variety in personalities that are fun to see, and lots of ways to do it.
Like you just said, being conscious of the types of players that you have and what they need. We need to also understand when our players' confidence is falling or possibly they're on the other end of that spectrum. They need to be humbled or brought back down. They need to be reminded that you're not that important, right? How do you build confidence with your players?
Yeah. And that's one of those for me. I mean, I want to let them know what they do well, but I can't give them confidence. They've got to repetitively perform. I just think day in, day out, make good plays. I mean, that if you're making good plays, Dan, you should gain confidence, and it shouldn't come from, playing time or from me saying I'm confident in you. That's important for them to be repetitively good. They need to look so often. Girls will look back at their screw ups instead of, man, I made 5 good plays. They'll only see the 1 or 2 they didn't. And so, my assistant's done a great job and we'll give them highlight videos sometimes during the year. Just send them clips of, hey, these were great plays, just so they see themselves doing well. But again, that confidence factor it's so fragile. And I just have a hard time. I don't want to constantly be building someone up. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. They just need to do it repetitively. And then they need to look back and see when they've done it well in the past and just mimic that. And again, their teammates can help with that. There's sometimes, obviously, there's teammates on the bench telling a kid to shoot it, and I'm saying, no, don't tell them to shoot it. There's those moments too.
Will you care more about us winning, please?
Yeah. Yeah. They want them to, they're cheering for their teammate. I said, that's wonderful, but not now.
Yeah.
So those are sort of those moments you have to talk through with a player, or even, hey, right now, next year, that's going to be what I want you to do. Right now, we don't need you doing that. So those are those delicate things that you want to balance well, but you want to communicate them. Like if my assistant won't see that girl sort of took something hard, and make sure we talk to her. Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. Those.
What a
Sometimes we
great
have to
job. That's a great point. Great job for assistants to have during practice is for them to be, because sometimes you'll say something and you turn and you don't get to see the immediate aftermath of what you said. And they can. And I think, but that maybe when you're giving those the instructions for their job description, a big part of it needs to be being mindful or conscious of what my words or what our words are saying to players, what teammates, when they give an instruction, how that person's handling it as well. I think that's a great nugget.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because we were talking today about roles of coaches, and what all do you do? What are you? I was asking each of them, so we have a list that we can divide up well. But that needs to be written on my list right there. Of it's important that you as an assistant are aware of their react. So that's helpful to me. That needs to be done, and I've noticed after I need to go apologize to a kid. One time I sort of made again, in practice you make jokes. There was a smaller guard. There was a bigger inside player. And I said, yeah, you should take that midget down. And, I made sort of, I don't know what I said. It was some.
Can't say that, coach.
Yeah, take the Hobbit down there and post her up or something. And the next day I got to thinking that night, and I talked to her the next day, and she sort of admitted, like, yeah.
Coach, at Grapevine Faith, that's a parent email the next day or that night when you get home. But no, but I appreciate you sharing that, because you're right on the money. To your point of humor earlier, sometimes we want to give a little bit. Like, obviously we can take, and I don't mind ever if they apparently there's a way that I put my practice plan in my pants and a way that I stand in practice that is mimicked across behind in the locker room. I don't mind that at all. That's great. So but sometimes, coach, you want to dish it a little bit too, but then you got to remember, in my case, they're still kids.
Yes.
And golly, then I think it's a great idea for us to do our very, very best not to embarrass them.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you did that, but I'm saying, like, that's kind of what I've thought over the past, but golly, it's hard though. And that's where giving them maybe those assistants, hey, I want you to listen to what I say, and I want you to watch our players closely, and, not damage control like that. I don't want to think negatively like that, but, come back and reinforce, or maybe tell me about some blind spots that, when you say this, it may be taken this way. Golly, that's great. And then ultimately, we, as the head coach, we have the ability to say, I appreciate you telling that. And then my head, nah, I'm good. That's nothing. But it's good to know.
It is. Yeah. Just to be aware, and not have things later come back that I should have known better, or I'm glad you're telling me this.
Yeah.
Because those little things can build. I've got this, I don't know if you can see, it's a bag of, it's a little cup full of pebbles.
Yeah.
And in the beginning of the year, I put some pebbles in a lot of their practice shoes before practice, and told them, hey, put shoes on, don't take them off once you do. And they came down in practice, and there was pebbles in their shoes. Some of them didn't have any. And so I made them practice. And at some point I had them take their shoes off. I heard this from somewhere, and I thought I'd use it. Just talking about how little things like that over a course of a practice or a year can just rub and cause blisters and cause problems, make you miss a game. But just the little things that irritate you, if you don't do anything about it, it's going to grow and be a problem. And so we kept that all year. Just let's not let these little things take away from our performance or our unity, or become a distraction to us, because then all you worry about is a pebble.
Coach, I love that. I love that. Definitely going to borrow that. Let me ask you, how many times have you done that?
That was the first time I'd ever done it.
Okay, because now what I want to know is, are you going to do it again? Are you going to try to do it again? Or do you think the returning players are going to know, like, hey, don't put your shoes on. Like he probably put pebbles in our shoes again.
Yeah, it may. Yeah, that may have to cycle its course.
That's right.
Years, probably. Those are. Yeah, there's some things that you can try, and I'll come back to it again, maybe.
Yeah,
but it'll be a while. It would be a while.
Did you feel like though that the idea behind it came through?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I really. These kids were always. They were very open to object lessons and to. They wanted. We have some real good guardians of our team. Some kids that really want to protect the team. If you had some leaders on the team but I just feel like the mentality was so strong that they were looking for ways. Yeah, that's a good point, to reinforce what was going to help us. They didn't think they had it figured out. And so,
Coach, that's a good one. I like that.
It was one of the, I thought that, I can't even remember where I heard it, but I thought I'm going to try that. And it was helpful.
That confidence question, it's not a test, but like you, in my opinion, you answered it correctly, which is you can't give them confidence. Nothing you can say. And I think that's where we have to help our players and parents at the high school level. Like in my parent meeting, I talk about confidence, where it comes from and how, because I select ball years ago when a parent came to me and said, "Oh, we're just so glad after one practice of a freestyle playing and everybody gets to shoot threes. Sure, that sounds fun until we're not making many of them and they're all upset." But a parent came up and said, "Oh, we're so glad that Johnny's playing for you. His high school coach really stole his confidence, really took his confidence." And I wanted to, in that moment, say, "You know what? I don't think this is going to work out. This is not because it's only a matter of time until I become now the person that's stolen his confidence because he's not playing well." So we got to let our players know where confidence comes from. But, and I think we've kind of been talking about this the whole time, it's wise to know the effect that we can have on their confidence. We can build it up more and we can enhance it. We can also help them to protect their confidence by the way we train, the way we think about misses, the way that, something I've been really convicted about, Coach, is watching myself this past year on film after misses. We preach, we say that you will take every open three if that's within your range. We have a shooting scale, but do I show that with my body language after, or do I slump? Do I look up? Do I shake my head? Do I sit down at a random time that really is only a reaction to that miss? Yeah. I don't know. I think we're talking about confidence. I think we need to be more conscious of those things too.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, because reading that book, that toughness book, Jay Billis talked a lot about, body language. And that was my big thing going into this past season, was for me not to be reactive to, because we felt like we were having players that they didn't need to be depressed. They needed to be encouraged and given courage to not having it being discouraged by me, showing that. And so I don't know that I did a great job.
That's what I was going to ask you. How'd you do?
I was more aware of it. So I think it did help. I don't think I had a revival, a total repentance and conversion, but I think they still, it's funny, they still, because I talked to them, I said, "Man, I don't want to act that way." Some of them were like, "Well, no, we want you to not give us," they don't want me to be fake. They don't want me to, "Yay, way to go," when they know it wasn't good.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's them knowing me well and me knowing them enough to give each other a little bit of grace on it. But that is one thing I want to try not to be frustrated when a bad play happens, because I don't want them to be frustrated when a bad play happens. And so I'm not holding the standard that I want to hold them to. That's not fair.
And the way that we say things too, like Old School is one of my favorite movies with Will Ferrell back in the day. And there's this great scene where he's in the locker room and he's in whitey tighties only because I think he just went through like a burning hoop. And so he's all guard up and stuff, but this group of guys talking about this competition, and Luke Wilson is talking about, hey guys, listen, we're good. We need to stay calm and just keep our. And Will Ferrell comes in, grabs a chair, and starts slamming it, yelling, "We got to stay calm. We got to keep our composure." The same message, but I'm not listening to that. So, to your point, like, we want our players to shoot courageously, but what are we saying, or what's the tone, or what am I showing that actually takes away from that? And I think that's just something we gotta. That we can't be Will Ferrell and whitey tidies.
Well, I'm going to have to add that clip to something we do next year, because that'd be perfect for them to watch.
I'll share it with you. It's great. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I would love to see that. I've never seen that movie. He's obviously hilarious, but that fits perfect with a team and reactions and me.
And tone. I mean, you call a timeout and stay calm. Like, dude, you're not calm. How can we stay calm?
Yes.
But it's just as much as
yelling. Yeah, the parents yelling "relax" at their kids. They're screaming. I mean, you always hear that. It's so goofy.
Yeah.
But good point. Good point.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. Coach, I got one more before the speed round. And you've had so much success in your 20 seasons. And obviously, sometimes losses, but failure can come in different ways. Defeat can come in different ways. How do you handle defeat with your team?
Yeah. Honestly, I hate to say you love to lose. It's always helpful. It's so weird how you want to teach them through wins. You want to teach through, even if you win and play poorly. I mean, but there's just something about, the suffering of a loss, and what does it do? How do people react? How do they take the reactions of the campus or, the parents, defeat. It's one of those things. I want to be the same through defeat as we are through victory. It's like we knew these things were going to get us eventually, and today they did. Or, hey, we really played well. That team just played better than us. Sometimes the defeat is not even a negative. It's like, hey, have credit to that team. They played really good. And so it's not a demoralizing situation. But again, we want to show, we would take that. We'd show plays most every weekend after a Thursday, Saturday weekend. We would on Monday watch winning and losing plays. These were, whether we won or lost, it doesn't matter.
How many you typically show?
Yeah, we might have 15 minutes, maybe, I don't even know how many clips.
Okay.
40 to 50 clips of possessions, little things that happen in the game. Either way, we may have won both games, but these were the winning plays. These were plays that really are going to get us against the best teams. These are losing plays. And so we keep all year trying to figure out. So when a loss comes, it's like, this is life. I mean, I just don't see the negative in sometimes losing. I mean, every game someone loses, and it's like, are they a failure? I mean, the first question we ask little kids on the weekend, we see them in a, fast food restaurant eating lunch on Saturday, and they're in their uniform. Did you win? I mean, that's not the question we should ask kids. Does that determine whether he had a good day or not? Because a lot of times they'll either say yes, excited, or they'll look down like no. And so now they felt like their sporting experience that day was bad. And so it's a terrible question to ask, I think, young kids.
You're right on the money. But I even think I just, with either my son, because sometimes I'm not able to be at all of his select games, and coach is first, well, how'd we do? First question. Right.
And that could mean a lot of things, though.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'm squeaking by with that. But there's sometimes, like, another player will call me, like, first, I think, well, in your opinion, what are better questions to ask?
Yeah, for them, especially those young kids. It was like, hey, did you have fun?
There you go.
That's a lot of times my friend to those young kids. Hey, did you have fun today? Were you a good teammate? What did you enjoy about the game? uh, finding some positives in whatever that went on, as opposed to, with the older players. I mean, I think how did it go is a good question, because it could have gone really well and they could have lost.
Yeah.
It could have gone poorly and they won. Uh, so,
I
I mean,
mean, you
that's a good
can learn a
question.
lot from that question. I don't think it's bad though to ask, like, maybe it's not fun, but hey man, did you enjoy playing? Did you enjoy
Yeah.
competing?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
because I think it's so funny, um, how I have so much more appreciation for what parents go through now because I'm
Mhm.
going through it in
Yeah.
this moment where, he doesn't play all the time in his select team. And I know why, but maybe my family that's with me doesn't. It doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
The thought of, golly, is the coach is not like it? No, no, no. But guys, listen, when he's in, he looks a little shaky. He's not shooting. He's a great
Yeah.
shooter. He's 0 for 4. Like,
Right.
I'm sorry. This is, especially in this world with select, where there is no uh, previous knowledge or skin in the game or
Right.
experience, where, like, when I have with my players here, I can remember back to a game when he was 0 for 5 and finished 6 for 11.
Right.
Like, I can remember that game, but they don't know that. So it just, but the questions that I need to be prepared to ask my son or my players after these games, it's the same with our teams, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Even when I have a 24 and a 26-year-old son, my boys, they played in high school together. Awesome. They're playing a city league right now. They're with some of their former high school teammates, and we'll go watch them play. It's still fun to watch them play.
Yeah.
But but you still have those same feelings, like, oh man, take care of the ball, or make your free throw. You
Get
still have
powerful. Get
yeah,
powerful.
relax, relax.
How were you as a in high school? You're coaching, your kids are in high school, you're watching them play for other people. How'd you do?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. They had such good coaches. I honestly, I mean, I really wanted to sit there and watch and enjoy it. If it was one of those, if they made like, I thought they made a bad play, but I really wasn't a loud fan or yelling at anything. I wanted them let their coach, because I mean, again, I just think that we got to let those coaches coach their team. It's their team. They're there every day in practice. They know what's going on. Uh, you know, I know you don't go to the parents of your players' workplaces and holler at them for doing their taxes wrong or something, whatever it is they're doing. It's just coaching such a strange. It's just so misconstrued. Everybody thinks they can do it because they did it in you know elementary school, and
Or they watched, I mean, I love Suits, the show Suits, about the lawyers. And I've picked up some jargon over the years. I have no clue what it means to be a lawyer and to do any of that stuff.
yeah,
But, and my mom was the same way. She watched a lot of my practices, watched a lot of games, and thought that qualified her to know that my coach, Tommy Thomas, wasn't doing a good job with me. Like, yeah.
there's just not any 24-hour sports talk shows that about, I mean, lawyer talk shows or mechanic talk shows that, everybody has an opinion on ESPN or on the ticket, whatever you're listening to.
Yeah.
All day long, they all analyze everything that happened or everything that should happen, but they're not in the game.
Yeah.
And so everybody's an expert with no knowledge.
Is there anything you do at the college level because I have thought a lot about trying to bring parents behind the scenes a little bit more, like let them come to practice, have more of these intentional meetings with them about, like, hey, how are we going to handle a loss this season, like as a group, with the parents, and any other strategies or anything that you do. I know it's different, like they're more independent, but anything you
I think
do.
even in high school, though, we'd have a parent practice night, bring all the parents, show them what we run on offense, show them what, against a press. We want to push it up the sideline, stop and reverse it. We don't want to yell, go, 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 so they understand why some things to them don't make sense. And, give them a chance to see here's what we're thinking. In college, our practices are always open for parents. When they come to town, shoot arounds, they're here. They always know they can come anytime. And so I want them around as much as possible so they get acclimated to what it is, how we do it, what we do. So, yeah, I just want as much open access as possible. Some people want closed practices. They want no distractions. And that's fine. I just think when a game comes, there's so much chaos. The more you learn to handle chaos, the better. In practice and whatever, because the games are very distracting. And so if you can't concentrate through chaos in practice, you're not going to be able to do it in a game. But
Coach,
so parents, I just think I want them there as open to come to watch anything they want as possible.
Yeah, PGC on Wednesday nights, we would allow parents. It's the only time over the 5 days that they can come, and we have a really cool. We would have when I used to direct, we'd have a really cool classroom session that was the message was really more for the parents and to help some of the disconnect and treat officials like human beings. And so we had a whole thing on officials but when the athletes would go to the court, I would stay around with the parents and say, hey, really appreciate that you're here. We're not going to film the session because what we do here is secret and special, but also I want you to pretend you're at the zoo. You don't tap on the glass and don't feed the animals. Just watch. You're here to observe. But the whole idea was I think that'd be just an important reminder for them being at a practice is not to start giving their input or helping, even though cheering. I know they're I know they're shoot it, just shoot it, Johnny. No, ma'am. I
think our girls. I think if any of our parents did that, our players would just run up there and grab them by the throat.
I feel so bad. Especially, I'm in select ball world right now, so I'm thinking about it a lot. I just feel so bad for some of these kids because their parents are screaming at them to shoot at the worst times. Like they're facing away. They're at 16 feet and they're almost behind the backboard, but shoot it. What are they supposed to do in this moment? Oh, it's awful.
It is painful. It's sort of funny, but it's also sad.
It is. Oh, you do have a lot of compassion. And again, it's humbling. With my players, again, after the game, I loved watching you play. I gotta hit that. I gotta and mean it. Not just say it. Oh, I love watching you guys because tone's important, right?
Yeah, that is so true. Yeah, that's something and especially this year, I really enjoyed this watching our team. And we tell them a lot in practice. Just say, hey, thanks for playing so hard. I mean, we just appreciate you. I mean, 'cause there's teams that we play against that may be better teams, whatever you want to call that, but we wouldn't trade you for anybody, just so they know and not be saying it as a joke, but really meaning it. Man, we appreciate them. And even if they play poorly, just to have the group that when you go to the locker room, I trust you guys. I mean, that's huge.
Coach, on that note, we're going to go to the speed round. These are short questions. First thing that pops in your head, blurt it out. Ready?
All righty.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate.
Greatest shooter of all time?
Steph Curry.
Texting or talking?
Wow, depends on who.
Great answer. That's right.
For whom?
Yeah, players. I'll text them all day. My mom. I better talk.
Yeah.
Greatest basketball movie of all time?
Oh man, Hoosiers.
Do you have a second?
Glory Road, really good.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Coach, do you think they were throwing oops off the backboard though in the late 60s or late 50s? That was the one part that I lost it.
Good point.
But great story.
Yeah.
For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
I would like it.
Any reasons why we shouldn't have one?
Well, I mean,
Besides cost and
right.
running it.
That's the only thing I can think is
What about the purity of the game?
What's that?
The purity of the game, or like,
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, baseball put in a pitch clock. I mean, why shouldn't basketball put in a shot clock?
Love that, coach. That's good. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
You're up 3 on defense with 7 seconds left. Foul or no foul?
Foul. I think we need a foul.
Yeah. What book would you give someone?
Well, it's funny. The book I give a lot of people is the Joy of Self-Forgetfulness. It's a tiny book from Tim Keller.
Okay.
It's called The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness. Honestly, it's a tiny little book, and but I have a bunch up here on my bookshelf, and I just usually will hand them to people because, yeah, it's just a simple message of get out of yourself.
Love that. Writing it down. There you go.
Or the leftovers.
Yeah, the shameless plug. Talk about humility right
That's
here.
awesome. No, that's tremendous. That is, you need to share that. That's amazing. That's a big deal. I mean, really, that's very.
I'll edit the last minute out. No, thanks, Coach. Favorite place to travel?
Wow, good question. That I've been or that I would like to go. I mean, that's
both.
Yeah, Costa Rica was fun. I've had the opportunity. My dad was in the Air Force, so we lived in Germany. I've been to London. We've been to Africa. I've been to Hawaii.
Nice.
I got to coach USA basketball, so we got to travel Argentina to Belarus to Latvia. I've had a fortunate life of travel, so I think international travel. Everybody needs to have a chance to do it at some point. But favorite place, that's the tropical beach was fun.
Yeah. Let's see, 2 more. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
0.
Wow. You said that. You said
that's how many cups of coffee I've drank in my life.
Really? Okay. All right. We've been pretty aligned the majority of this talk. We took a sharp divider. Are caffeine in any way, or just?
Well, I would love to sit here and act like I'm no Coke. I mean, I like soda, and probably to my detriment. That's why I have to work out so I can eat and drink poorly.
Man,
sodas.
Coach Driscoll, he's at North Florida now. Is at Baylor. Just my senior year. He would run so much, and every day I'm like, Coach, why are you running? He's like, so at dinner I can eat whatever I want.
That's my philosophy. Yep. I'm losing though now because I can't run as much as I used to. So.
Last one in basketball, who's the GOAT?
Oh, Michael Jordan. Gotta be. He's just when you grow up in that era, it's just the way it is.
There's something about watching him. And maybe that's how these current players feel about Sue Bird, on the girl, like, or Taurasi, but or LeBron, like it's who they're watching right now. I think you watch Last Dance, even if you're younger now, you got to marvel at who he was.
Really eye-opening. What a zoo. And the social media aspect back then was non-existent, so if he had had that, it would have been just out of control.
Yeah.
But, LeBron, he gets so much more publicity just by nature of media these days. But I'm not a anti-LeBron. He's amazing. But
no doubt.
I just got to stick with MJ.
Coach, this was so enjoyable. You almost gave me 2 hours of your time, which is incredible. But again, I've been a fan of yours from afar. Over the years, and Coach Duncan spoke so highly of you as well. But this was just a pleasure, honored to have you talk hoops with me.
Well, thanks this is a lot of work you do. I mean, you've got a lot going on with your work, your coaching. I know you do a lot of training, lots of family. It's keeping you busy too. So
it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, you must be pretty technological to do all this. So. I'm serious. Running a podcast, pretty good deal.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I think people would be shocked at how simple. We talk about simple all throughout our talk. I try to keep this as simple as possible, and but I've always loved, just even from a young age, from junior high, high school, sitting around coaches, listening to them, talking with them. And this is just another way to get to do it. And you said something about, giving things away. And I think I love what, you giving up your time. It's special. And if this just helps one coach, they hear one thing that, man, maybe just changes the trajectory of their season next year, helps them coach their kids better. This is the time's worth it.
Yeah. Well, appreciate it, Matt. Yeah. It's really neat what you're doing. Yeah,
if anybody has any questions, about more, and because we don't always get to X's and O's, and because to me, I think some of the stuff we talked about is way more important anyway. But if they have more questions, what's a great way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, mention my email. I'll leave my email or phone number because I'm not a big social media. I'm not a big on it. So my email, steve.gomez@lcu.edu. And if they email that, then on that, I'll reply, and my cell phone's on my email when I send emails. So they can, again, I'd be glad to call or talk with anybody.
Coach, thank you so much for your time, man. This was awesome.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.